the core of all the things that I teach are usually because I've had some type of physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, something that I have struggled with and needed to dissect all these different ways of working through.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is Laura Greenberg, and we're going to be talking about her circuitous route to becoming a life coach in personal, business, and spiritual matters. But first, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, a little bio on myself. There's also a YouTube channel where you can listen. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. My guest today is Laura Greenberg. She has a company and a platform called Alcheme, A-L-C-H-E-M-E. That's the me part of Alcheme. She's had a very interesting life, from overcoming addiction to becoming a massage therapist and eventually a life coach. And we talk about all the various modalities she employs in helping her clients to achieve their dreams. One of the ones I didn't know about was something called human design. So she explains what that is, and she talks specifically about how she works with her clients and how she worked with herself to become the expanded human being that she has become. So please listen in. This is Laura Greenberg. You have a circuitous route to where you've come from to where you are today. So, one of the things that I sort of enjoyed reading was the first part, which was you could not figure out what you wanted to do with your life, which I think most people have that at some point, certainly when they're younger. The people who know what they want to do and be at a very young age are rare and very lucky. Mm-hmm. I wasn't one of those people. I had some instincts, but I certainly didn't. And so I know you're helping people to find those things now. So the first thing I noticed was that when you were 20, you went to Scotland. Is that where you went?
Scotland. Yeah. Yeah. That was a little unexpected. I was dating somebody and he was English and he was going to go off to Australia when I was going to go to a university, to college, because I was at a local college, but I didn't get in because my grades were terrible and I really didn't care about it. And so I decided to go with him to Australia. And then we went to visit England and Scotland first because that's where he's from and had friends. And then went to Australia, ran out of money, decided to go back to England where I was just going to live there and try to work. They caught on to that as I was going into Heathrow.
Yeah.
That I was going to try to stay there past my welcome date. And so they didn't let me in unless I got married. So they shipped me back to America. We decided to get married so that because we were, still together.
Yep.
And so at 20, I ended up getting married, and he had some friends in Scotland and we had a free place to stay. So we moved up to Scotland, and that's how I ended up there from 20 to 25.
And you were married that whole time?
No, we were married about 2.5 years. And then I realized I was 22 and married, and he was an amazing person, but I was just too young to be married. So
pretty young. Yeah, it's pretty young.
Yeah. So we got divorced, and I stayed because I didn't want to. I felt like if I moved back home to LA, I would have to face life, and I didn't want to do that. So I stayed for another couple of years.
Face life, and I didn't want to do that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
So you did come
Yeah.
back, and something brought you back. I'm assuming there was some either family pull or just the familiarity, or I just need a change. What was the thing that prompted you to come back to the United States?
It was at the time my mom was married to someone who was a pilot on private jets, and they were in Italy, and so I met them in Italy because I was living in Scotland and it was close. So I met them there. I started talking to the flight attendant about this job that she did, and I've always loved traveling and I've always loved food and cooking, and I said, "You get paid how much to do what?" You're flying around the world on these private jets and you're going to buy all this food and hang out with celebrities. And so what brought me back was that I really wanted to do that job. So I decided to move back to LA so I could, I knew I had an in at the company he worked at. So I did all the training I needed to do and ended up getting a job as a flight attendant on private planes. So that's really what brought me back. And probably the sunshine. I think I was a little bit tired of the cold.
I would be, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So now you're catering to people's needs. I mean, they're high end people with lots of money. I'm assuming, but there was still a restlessness. I'm going to assume that because you didn't stick with it and you found this new way to move through life. And how did you get from a flight attendant to a life coach?
So I did that for a few years. And during that time, people get drug tested. So I had been pretty much smoking weed every day since I was a teenager. And when I started in that industry, I couldn't anymore because I didn't want to get fired. So my drinking really excelled because that's acceptable when you're in that industry.
Oddly.
So I would be, drinking alone in hotel rooms, and it was a great career. But I was also very feisty. And so I ended up somewhat gracefully being exited from that career and became a real estate agent following in my mom's footsteps. And I was terrible at that. and then I was able to start, partaking in the things that I hadn't partaken before. So I just started this slow decline into alcohol and drug addiction. And so I ended up getting sober. And about a year and a half before that, I really was physically unwell. I would wake up really sick every morning. I was in the hospital a lot. And somewhere along the way, people started introducing me to spirituality and books by the Dalai Lama or Deepak Chopra, or I started seeing a naturopath, healer, energy worker type guy. And I slowly started getting physically better, but my life wasn't progressing because I was still drinking or using every single day. But it got me interested in that type of world. And so I started training to be a massage therapist, even though I was still a mess. And again, somewhere along that, I realized I needed to get sober. And so my dad has been sober a very long time. And I went to him and I said, I think I need to go to those meetings that you go to. I ended up getting sober and embracing, the 12-step program and everything that was in it. And about 9 months or so into that, I got really drawn to a school called University of Santa Monica, where they do master's programs in spiritual psychology. And at the time, I really just wanted to start learning how to communicate with people, just have conversations or have empathy or have some type of human soul inside me that would connect with people. And so I did that, and I was doing massage on the side and a little bit of more like administrative real estate work, not actual real estate work.
Mm-hmm.
And taking a lot of other types of classes. And so that led to me learning how to sit with people and listen and guide them through their own healing. And that's really what led to where I am today. I didn't immediately become a life coach after that. I worked at a integrative medical center for a while, where I was integrating massage and meditation and coaching into sessions. And I realized that I really wanted to work with people in a more holistic way, where I could support them based on all the things that I had learned, into, creating a life where basically they're not so reactive.
No, I understand that, and I'm familiar with the University of Santa Monica. It really is an interesting place. I've had a number of guests on this show that have gone through programs there, and it's really, it's about what you're talking about, is becoming a whole person and learning how to connect with other people. Really, is the bottom line with all this stuff. It's very important to be able to, well, like you say, listen. Somebody once said to me, "Are you really listening? Or are you just getting ready to talk?" So.
Yes. One of the weekends it's because it's for 2 years and it's one weekend a month. And one of the weekends we practice silence, where we literally just sit and listen. So they practice in trios. So there's 3 people, and with each skill that we learn, you're in each seat. And so one seat is the client. So you're getting to process and work through something. One seat is the counselor, where you're guiding them through this specific skill. And then one seat is what they call the neutral observer. So every skill, we had to sit and listen to 2 people work through something and watch all the thoughts. Well, I would do this. Why would this, but just sit with it. Mm-hmm. And not respond, and see the beauty of how something can unfold without you having to insert yourself in it.
Yeah, it's really a powerful thing to be able to do. I'm not great at it. I'm always getting ready to talk. Well, that's what I'm doing on this. I have to sort of I have to get ready to talk, but to actually listen to somebody without having an opinion and just letting them do what they need to do or say is a really great thing. I always liked it when somebody did that with me, or I'd be like, they're really not going to say anything. They're just going to let me be whatever I have to say. That was really great for me, for me as somebody that was trying to figure things out. Mm-hmm. And I think what that does, it allows the person to tap into whatever that instinct is. So you got married again at some point during this path of self awareness, I guess you would call it, self improvement, empowerment, all those kinds of wonderful things that you were doing. Mm-hmm. And because I know your husband.
Yes.
I know you got married.
we got married quite a while ago now, it seems like.
It's great. Yeah. It's a nice thing to be able to have somebody that you love and that annoys you on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, that it's definitely provided some of the most powerful growth that I've experienced. And we actually, I guess in 2021, he moved out for 6 months. We were ready to be done with each other. And it launched me into a very deep level of grief and healing, more so than I had ever experienced. And realized that for the most part, I was the asshole with relationship.
You took responsibility for yourself.
Yes, I had used all of that work, that spiritual work that I did, and made myself feel better than him, as a way to just protect my own insecurities and, fears of intimacy and vulnerabilities, and made him wrong and made him the bad guy, and mm-hmm. told him that it was, he's the one who needed to work on his trauma. And so after a lot of healing, I realized that I didn't want to be separated from him or divorce him, and that he's in general much happier than I am, despite all the work that I do. So maybe I had something to learn from him. So we ended up getting back together. And of course, we still have arguments and get frustrated, but it's much quicker. We're quicker to take responsibility. We move through things quicker and it doesn't get as gnarly. And I don't have that anger inside of me towards him because it was never really about him. It was always about myself and how I felt about myself anyways. So it's been a really, he has, in our relationship, has been one of my greatest teachers.
Yeah, it's amazing that type of intimacy with another person is an amazing teacher. I mean, it shows up all your issues in tenfold. It's just an amazing thing. I can move through the world and be a certain way and, marvelous and all those kinds of things, but get me in a one-to-one with somebody that knows every little thing about me, and I am annoying. I annoy myself sometimes. I can't even believe it. But the knowledge that everyone is annoying and to accept certain things and while you're working on the things that aren't the way you want them is to me like the difference between successful relationships and ones where people just decide to run.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really important to be able to love people for all of who they are, or just be able to stay there and let somebody have their darker moments, even if they're aimed at you, and learn how to not take it personally, or learn how to just love them if they're in pain, and vice versa, to be able to be messy and gritty and know that they're not going to walk away, that they still love you through it. It's a really beautiful feeling to have.
Yeah, there's a level of safety and comfort in knowing that the other person isn't going anywhere almost no matter what you do. I mean, obviously there's lines that should not be crossed if you want success.
Yeah.
But annoying is not one of them. Annoying is fine.
Yeah.
Super annoying can be fine too.
Sometimes.
So in your coaching, is it relationship coaching? Is it career coaching? Is it all those things? Let's like walk through maybe a typical or atypical kind of person that you would work with. What do you get the most of? Is like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up and I'm 40, that kind of thing.
Often people come to me with some type of career situation. They're starting a business, or they want to expand their business. We almost never work on that completely, because the work that I do is really about helping the person create who they want to be versus who they are, or accepting parts of themselves. So I always start with helping people build a spiritual foundation of some kind, some type of connection, some type of spiritual practices to help tap into their inner wisdom and their intuition. And then we do some intuition training, because when someone comes to me, my ultimate goal when we stop working together is that they can trust themselves to make decisions, to know what feels right for them, to know that any given situation isn't happening at them, it's happening for them. And what can they use that situation for? How can they use it to learn and to grow? Once we create that foundation, then we work on healing triggers and reactions. And oftentimes I'll refer them to some type of therapy or trauma therapy or some other modality that can really help shift those neural pathways. And we do some nervous system activation and training so that they can actually receive and hold the things that they want in their life, like love or success or, whatever it is that they want. And then from there, we work on some of the outer stuff that they may want. Like there's one person I'm working on who's building a business. So we are working on some specific business steps to take as to what to do. But it's all about how are you showing up for each and every day of your life? And is that in alignment with your values? And where are you compromising who you are? And how can you use your creativity and imagination and spiritual connection to guide you throughout the day and not be so reactive? that's like the overarching way that I work with people when I'm doing my one-on-one coaching.
So these techniques, you learned them or at Santa Monica College when you went there? A lot of these techniques, or is this other sort of trainings that you've had after?
Some of it I learned at USM. So definitely, healing judgments and healing triggers and stuff. Some of it intuition training. I've trained with other teachers. I do some embodiment work with people. I've trained with other people. Same with nervous system stuff. Again, it's more other different trainings. And then the biggest tool that I use now is human design, a system that draws from astrology and quantum physics and the I Ching hexagram and the Kabbalah tree of life and the Hindu chakra system. And it basically brought into existence from a man in 1987 after having a mystical experience in Ibiza. Not of the rave type or partying type, but
Yeah.
it basically takes all of those and it layers them together to using your birth data to give you a blueprint of how you're energetically designed. And I've found that after studying it for some years now, it has given me and my clients the most validation of saying, oh, all these things I judge myself for so many years is actually how I'm designed. It's part of my genius. And, you talked about my circuitous route of getting to where I am. It's how I'm designed. I'm not designed to know what I want to do from an early age and do this one thing. Like that would destroy me. I need to be doing different multiple things. And when I started studying it, I was looking at Matt, my husband's design. And it's one of the things that helped me really accept him. Say, oh, all these things I judged him for, they're part of who he is and how he's designed. And they're part of his genius. And so I got to see him in a different way and understand it. So that I've also taken, different trainings and stuff for. The core of all the things that I teach are usually because I've had some type of physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, something that I have struggled with and needed to dissect all these different ways of working through.
Well, that's great. I loved what you just said about your husband. That's really a marvelous thing to be able to look at somebody and go, that's who they are. Why should you try to change them if that's who they are?
Yeah.
Or wish they were different. It's like, oh boy, if you could just, I had a friend of mine, he was dating this woman years ago, and she says to him, you used to be different, but now you're the same. He goes, huh?
Yeah, it's a head scratcher.
Yeah, and I just always loved that this person, she had reached a level of dissatisfaction with who he was, and he was a different new thing and exciting, and now he was who he was, and she didn't care for that, or I guess I don't know what.
Like wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Now I want to talk about when people come in for help and they have do you break down, breakdown's not the right word, discuss their belief systems on different areas of their life? Because let's say it's a business thing and people have a belief about money. Do you get into that kind of stuff? Like money is bad is a very common one, or only terrible people get rich, those kinds of things. You have to be a shark in order to be successful. I'm just picking money stuff that people have. Money's going to solve my problems. These are all sort of beliefs that people have. And do you go into that stuff? Do you have people do things about the different things you're working on and what they actually believe about it when they come in and how that might change?
Most definitely. Yeah, because we have the stories that we hold define who we are. And most of the time, the stories that we hold either come from outdated situations that happened in childhood, or our parents' beliefs, or the epi-genetics that lives within us, the DNA that surrounds our DNA that comes from, I forget if it's 7 to 14 generations of people before us. And so we have these, like if I say money, somebody will have this light storm in their head of all these different stories they have, of all these different neural pathway connections. And a lot of them are unconscious or subconscious. And if you don't start to understand what those are, they start to show up in your outside environment as reality. And so we have to go in and start to see, what are those stories? Where did they come from? Are they yours? Do you like them? Do you want to keep them? And if not, how do we create new ones? Because the stories create an emotional resonance. They create an emotional reaction. And that emotional reaction is what starts to attract the things into our life. Mm. And it shows up, like I said, as truth and reality. So if we can switch the stories, you can switch the emotional reaction. And then you can switch what you're bringing into your life, which is sometimes why I refer people to other types of modalities who can get in beyond the subconscious mind. And there's a ton of them. So depending on who I'm working with, I'll offer some suggestions for other modalities to try that I don't necessarily do, because a lot of it is steeped in deep trauma. And as much as I've done my own work on it and I've been trained in it, it's not my level of expertise or something that really lights me up so much. So I say go.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Go somewhere.
That trauma comes up constantly in this podcast. You know, it's I just did something on it yesterday. So yeah. And you know, it's people think of trauma as, you know, a terrible event or situation. It doesn't have to be that. As from what I'm seeing, it can be sort of low level continuous nonsense or destructive, you know, behaviors on the part of parents or, you know, schools or whatever it is that just might not affect me or you, but it might affect somebody else in a different way. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, the belief systems that people have. I mean, I wrote down at one point in my life, I decided I was going to write down what I believed about as many categories as I could think of. And some of the stuff was just unbelievably off. It was just not true.
Yeah.
Pure not true.
Yeah.
And where I got that stuff, you know, I could figure out some of it I don't know. And I love it, you know, and the idea of that historically there's generations of stuff that comes through. And I tell my wife sometimes when she's saying, oh, you're kind of negative. And I'm like, and I say, you know, those pyramid stones were heavy. My shoulders hurt.
The trauma that our ancestors experienced, and there is trauma, and, you know, the human civilization is messed up as it seems right now, has actually never been more comfortable or safe. Because you know, historically it was brutal, and a lot of that lives within us. And, you know, to touch back on trauma, you know, that lives within the epi-genetics that help run who we are. But regardless of the situations, you know, trauma is really our reaction to something, not the situation that happened. And so, yeah, that gets embedded in our systems. And I think the first time I really started understanding it is when I started massaging people, and it was before I got sober. And I would come away from the massages and I would feel like I needed to rip my skin off. I couldn't, there was so much energy surging through me that I didn't know what was happening. And then, or I would be massaging somebody and just be overcome with emotion of some kind. And I started asking people, like, what happened here in this part of your body? And I would get these crazy stories of the things that would happen, or what they were thinking or feeling, or the moment that I was feeling it. And I really viscerally understood that these stories and beliefs live in our body. They're not just thoughts in our mind. They're embedded in the cells of our body. And that's one of the reasons I studied embodiment, is because we need to move them not just out of our mind, the beliefs and stories, but through our body as well, through our energy system. and rework them in a way that fits to who we are today and the, more truthful reality. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, all those things that we're talking about are, part of what I think it's not just the challenge, but it seems like it's part of the purpose of being human is to go through those things to make, when you get to the other side, to feel that it really was important or that it's worthwhile. But sometimes it's really hard to see that. It
can be, but I think that's why I always start with the spiritual context with people, is because all of it could be bullshit. Like it could all be wrong, that the things that I believe, but it does help me that I have a context of, I believe in past lives, and that, do we come in pure? Not really. I believe we come in with certain chosen things we want to learn, and certain people that we are here to connect with and to learn from. And that once we pass, we get to kind of review what we have learned. And if we want to come back again and learn new stuff, then we can do that. So it sometimes it takes a long time to understand that or see it. But when I come from that context of everything and everyone in my life is an opportunity to learn and to grow, then it does help me feel a lot more peaceful and give me a lot more grounding and peace. Not happiness necessarily, but just peace and understanding. And like I said, I could be totally wrong. I don't know. Maybe one of the religions is right. I don't know. But that's what feels good for me. And that's what, when I'm working with people, I encourage them to find that for themselves. And I don't care what the system is that they use.
I don't know. I think is a pretty powerful thing too. That's a great place to be. In a lot of ways, just, it's an openness to, why, I don't know, but let's see. It's the people that think they know. Sometimes it can be like, well, you were saying that about yourself, that you had evolved in your mind to a place where you were up here and your husband was down here and you knew more than him. And I get that. There's plenty of sort of, I don't know, what would you call that? Guru mentality? I don't know what it is.
Superiority.
Yeah.
And
is that possible? I don't know if anyone's, you can be more adept at certain tasks than other people. It doesn't mean you're superior overall, but, I'm good at certain things that other people aren't, but am I better than them? No, because, everyone's got these certain things that they do very well.
Yeah.
Even if it's just kindness. If somebody's like a kind person, I look at those people that are just sort of seem naturally that way and don't have to really work at it like I do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, you're so earnest and so genuine and kind. That's, that to me has always been something that I've marveled at, because, I have a little bit more of a skeptical view of humanity, which does not serve me all that well. I mean, I keep my eyes open, but I don't really like that part of me where I'm just like, people are motivated by, selfishness all the time. And I don't think that's true intellectually, but certainly my visceral reaction to most people is, what's going on here?
I relate. I've had to do a lot of work around that too. And just, being okay being around people or saying hi, or just not, feeling so threatened when there's a new person around. And, some of that comes from intergenerational patterns, quite honestly. And some of it comes from my own insecurities. But there's, as I've studied more about human design, I see that within our human energetic makeup, there are certain things that are really there by design, and we judge ourselves for them. Like, for example, I love fighting. I love arguing. And for my whole life, I've been very argumentative. And as I studied my human design chart, I realized there's a part of it that's called the gate of the fighter. And I have this defined within me. I'm literally designed to fight. Now, the highest expression of that is, you know, really fight for things I believe in, you know, and then the lowest expression is argue just to argue, which is what I used to do. I just used to fight just to fight. And even as I was fighting with people, I'm like, you know, you're wrong, but you're still fighting. And so, over the years, I've embraced that part of myself that I used to hate, because I'm also extremely emotional. And as it turns out, my emotions are the key to my intuition. That's not that way necessarily for everybody, but for me, it is. And so I would get judged for being overly emotional and fighting too much. And then as I study this, you know, the system, it's like, oh, I'm designed to enjoy arguing and fighting for things I believe in. And I'm designed to use my emotions in a way to guide me towards what's good for me and what's not good for me. And so instead of judging those parts of myself, I go, oh, actually, I love those parts of myself, because in the highest expression, they're here to really serve me and people around me. Like, we have to have people who fight for things we believe in, that they believe in, because that helps humanity move forward, you know, and our emotions are very wise. You know, I often hear like feelings aren't facts. Well, actually they are. They're there to tell you something. They're there to be moved through you. They're there to guide you. Are they there for you to completely wallow in them and let them completely run your life? No, but they're there as wisdom and guidance, and to teach you something. And so, yeah, they are facts because they're happening. So don't ignore them.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I think that, you know, they may not be based on sort of a quantitative facts, but they are guideposts too. Like, I mean, if you can ask yourself, well, why am I upset right now? What's going on? What can I learn about myself? Because you know, this person's not upset with what's going on, but I am, and why is that? Yeah. So it is. You know, there's always something to learn, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. There certainly is.
Yeah, I'm not tired of learning, but sometimes you know, there's lessons that I don't feel like learning again.
It's nice to have a break sometimes.
Yeah, right. That's why I like meditation. Yeah. It's my daily break from everything. Yeah, and I'm sure that's part of what you do too. You're encouraging people to do things like that.
Most definitely. That's part of the first thing that we do, is building in those practices. And again, you know, one thing doesn't work for everybody. So we have them try out different things, but starting your day with some type of connection, peace, stillness, prayer. I think prayer is huge. And then closing the day in some type of mindful, conscious way, I just think are really important foundations to connect and to have some, space.
Have you ever done any past life regressions or things like that?
Yeah, so I've done them myself. And at one point I studied the Akashic Records. So the Akashic Records are basically a vibrational Google for your soul. So you use a prayer to open the records for somebody, and then you get access to their soul's journey, past, present, and future, past lives, what they're here to learn, everything. And so I still use that in my practice with people. And sometimes past lives will come through that help them heal from current situations, or somebody's, like, a relationship that they're having will tap on what happened in the past life that they're looking to heal in this life. So it's definitely a part of what I do. I found that when I was only doing Akashic Records readings, that people really just want an answer or a quick fix. And they'd say, oh my God, that was life-changing, and then never do anything about it. And so it feels more satisfying for me when I can put it within the context of a longer-term relationship where there's actual longer-term benefit of that information. So I stopped doing individual readings.
Okay. It's pretty cool stuff, though, I have to say. I don't, I've done a few things with hypnosis and stuff, and I really enjoyed some of the stuff that I got out of it. And it seems, for people that are listening that think it's bullshit, that's fine. You can think that, but it was definitely, I did it a few times and it was a great experience. And I did learn some things that were important to me. Why violence really freaks me out. That was one of the things that I learned about.
In terms of all the spiritual practices like Akashic Records or Reiki or even human design or all the other things, there's a lot of people who obviously don't believe in it, think it's bullshit, even chiropractors, or acupuncture. And I just think, whatever you're drawn to and works for you is great. And if it doesn't, then don't do it.
Yeah. I'm on the side of what works.
Right?
It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Like I don't need countless studies and meditation to tell me that it works for me, because when I don't meditate, which is very rarely, I go crazy. I literally start turning into a crazy person. So I'm going to keep doing it because it feels good and it works for me. I don't need the data to back it up. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, like a parent knows intuitively what's going on with their child. They don't need to take the kid to an expert to be told that the kid's lying, let's say, or the kid's, depressed or whatever. It's just, you just know.
You just know.
You just know. And so those are the nonverbal communication that is probably, well, I think, what do they say? What percentages of communication between people is nonverbal? It's much higher than the verbal. Yeah. Like 70% or something. I don't know.
Yeah, very much so.
So we get to do all these cool things that we can't see, but we know they're there.
Right. Yeah. Get to learn trust in some way, right?
So how do people get a hold of you? I know your company is called Alcheme with an E on the end, not a Y, because of me. It's
because of me. I like teaching people that they can put themselves first.
Yes.
So my website is www.alcheme.org. And that's the best way to get in touch with me. So there's, you can apply for one-on-one coaching in there, but I also have a well-being membership community called Alcheme.
Oh, great.
And in that, it really nurtures meaningful connections and enhances people's ability to use their creativity and imagination in all areas of their life. And it teaches people how to receive the abundance of life, including the struggle of life, and find the beauty in it. And so within that, we do coaching calls every month, and I teach some human design stuff. And I also bring in guest speakers. Like this month, I have a financial planner coming in to help teach something. So, and I use all the things that we've talked about in the session. I teach and use throughout the whole community. So it's a private community that I use on an app. So it's not like a Facebook group. And,
great. Okay.
It's a monthly membership, and it's really, it provided me with the most fulfilling way to work with people, so that there is structure, but then within it, it can flow on what's happening within the community or what I find interesting to teach on and different practices.
How long do people usually work with you? I'm sure it's different for everybody, but is there like a window of time that, and ages too? Let's talk about that too.
I usually end up working with people for at least 6 months to a year, if not longer, if it's one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And even within that, when I run groups and stuff, I'll have a lot of the same people sign up.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm.
And then ages, that tends to vary. I have people in their 20s, and then I've also had, men in their 60s and 70s who want to work with me. So I'd say on average, it's probably women in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. Mm-hmm. But I do have a range of people.
Yeah, I love that. Because I think a lot of people hit a certain age and they've done something for 20, 30 years and they go, now what?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing for folks. What's going to make me feel useful and fulfilled now that I'm, a certain age, and I don't maybe even maybe I never even liked what I did for a living, because I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
that comes up a lot. I know a lot of people just hate what they do. I do not hate what I do, but I have to say, there are parts of anything I've ever done, the stuff I've loved the most, there are parts of it I don't like.
Even with the people who don't really love what they do, I think it's important to really look at what are your values, and I think especially in America, there's this idea that turn your passion into income. And that's not always the case. Like,
No,
I'm
it's
passionate about
definitely.
cooking. I
Thank you for
love
saying that.
cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to do anything where I'm making money from cooking. I love cooking for my family and friends when I feel like it. And that's it. And I love studying it and I love taking classes, but I don't want to do anything with it. I happen to do what I do. Like, my main mission is, and purpose, and why I do this is because I literally get fired from everywhere that I work. I'm not meant to work for somebody. I want to have freedom in my life, and I'm literally not qualified to do anything else other than help people. And I love it and I'm good at it. But it's also because I don't play well with others in terms of working for somebody. So, um, but that's not everybody. And I think
No.
if somebody's in a job that they don't love, could they be doing something else? Sure. But does it have to be their passion? No. But switching
Right.
their mindset to say, one of my values is spending time with friends or family, or having money to take care of this people or whatever. And so I show up at this job and I show up with the understanding that this is what I'm doing so that I can also live in accordance with my values, and I'm going to show up in a way that feels good for me.
I had a friend. I used to be a TV writer, and I was working on this show. I won't say the name of it, but this friend of mine said, "Oh, that just proves how much you love your family that you're working there.
Oh,
You're doing this crappy show."
right. Well, but it's true, and
He
I think
wasn't
just
wrong.
yeah, that mindset shift is important, because we're not always going to get to fill every single day with things that we love, and sometimes, yeah, working is a means to an end, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I agree. So if we both agree, we must be right. How about that?
Right.
Well, thanks so much, folks. This is Laura Greenberg, and alchemy.org is her website. Check it out if you want some coaching or just some inspiration to be part of a community of well-being and all those kinds of wonderful things. That's the place to go. Does that sound
Thanks,
good? Is that a good
Bob. Yeah,
commercial?
that's great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a beautiful day. I think
Thanks, you
I
too.
love that you came on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much appreciation for you folks listening to The Exploding Human. Check out the website, theexplodinghuman.com, the YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. And I want to thank Laura Greenberg once again. You can find her at lauramgreenberg.com. That is her website, and you can find all about the company Alcheme and some of the programs that she offers. Have a fantastic day. Thank you.